It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Wednesday, October 9th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols brings to life the latest news, weather, sports, and in-depth conversations that matter to you. In the early morning hours of Saturday, China Bosch of Gillette was stabbed 5 times in her arm, twice in her chest, and once in the face. China's husband, John Bosch, is charged with attempted second-degree murder and is being held in the Campbell County Detention Center on a $750,000 bond. China told Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland on Tuesday that this is not the first time that her husband has harmed her.
He attacked her in 2019 at the Keyhole State Park and fled, very similar to what's alleged from Saturday. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation. But then 4 months after he was sentenced to probation, they got married. And she became tearful as she was talking about her decision here, saying that she wanted her son to have a father, but nothing could persuade her to go back now.
China said her children are doing all right. She's starting counseling and she's planning to attend a support group. Well, as crews continue to make progress establishing some boundaries around the elk fire, which has burned nearly 75,000 acres across the eastern face of the Bighorn Mountains, the evacuation status of the 850 or so residents of Dayton was downgraded Monday. And Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson reports that the efforts of firefighters and local volunteers on the ground protecting property and people have not gone unnoticed by their neighbors.
I talked to a lifelong Dayton resident on Tuesday who said that they're emotionally finally starting to come down the roller coaster a little bit because they're no longer being told that they have to be ready at a moment's notice to evacuate. He said that the firefighters, the pros from the incident management team and the locals have just been doing a phenomenal job. He called them heroes. He said that these guys are saving property, they're saving people's lives, and that it's just really a big outpouring of thanks from the people who live there for those guys.
The Double Rafter Ranch has been a fixture in northern Wyoming since 1887. It's still there, thanks in part to what some area residents have taken to calling the Hillbilly Hotshots, a group of self-appointed rancher firefighters who helped to save it from the elk fire. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that these ranchers have outfitted their own trucks with water tanks, determined to patrol their ranchers' and neighbors' homes for embers carried by wind far from the fire's front lines.
They're not necessarily trained firefighters, although some of them may have had some training at one point. They're kind of patrolling their ranches, their neighbors' ranches. They're checking on sprinklers and things like that. Basically trying to stay out of the firefighters' way, but also looking for those embers that float on the wind.
Firefighters have tried to discourage the practice, saying that it can result in diverted fire resources when someone untrained is in the area, but Double Rafter Ranch residents say they're convinced the Hillbilly Hotshots helped to avert a tragedy. When the latest of a series of run-ins between hunters and grizzlies, a hunter in Montana tried climbing a tree to get away from a female bear with 2 large cubs. It didn't work. The man ended up shooting and wounding the bear, which was later finished off by agents from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. But according to outdoors reporter Mark Hines, climbing a tree is not necessarily a safe course of action when being chased by an angry grizzly.
I also talked to a couple bear biologists, and their answers were basically, well, it depends. How quickly can you get up the tree? How sturdy is the tree? What state is the bear in? Is the bear just kind of mildly irritated, or is the bear enraged and really determined to get you? Will you be able to get up there and turn around and spray it in the face as it tries to come up the tree after you? Despite maybe some popular misconceptions about them, grizzly bears can climb trees and climb them very well. So don't kid yourself into thinking that's going to keep you safe.
There have been several bad encounters between grizzlies in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho this year, some of which ended with hunters shooting and killing the bears. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Well, a lot of you probably know the movie Groundhog Day, where everything is almost the same every day. Well, that's basically where we've been for the last 3 weeks, really. And here we are heading into midweek, and we don't have really much different to talk about. One good thing is we're not having as much wind. temperatures are maybe a little cooler than they've been, but still above average. Many of you haven't even had a season-ending freeze yet. And as we go through today, tomorrow, and Friday, and into the weekend, we don't expect much to change. Now, there will be a few light showers that may develop in the coming days up into Montana, near the Wyoming-Montana border, maybe the mountains of the west, but we're talking sprinkles. Nothing that would give us a good soaking or really help us out with the fire situation. We're still looking at around or after the 18th of October is when this pattern will finally change. Until then, it's going to be Groundhog Day.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 20 seconds with more news.
When we say community is the heart of Hilltop, we're talking about a team of bankers committed to improving the place we call home. A team that shows up every day to help businesses thrive and gives back to our neighbors through time, attention, and service. We're inspired by the way our bankers give back because that's one of the many qualities that makes us truly a community bank. Hilltop Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Well, late last month, Weston County commissioners notified the Wyoming Republican Party that they will file 2 vacant Wyoming legislature seats. Those seats don't currently exist, but politics reporter Leah Wolfson explains that the Weston County commissioners believe that since the county doesn't have a dedicated senator or representative solely representing them, they are unconstitutionally represented.
There is about 4 senators and representatives total that represent sections of their county in addition to other counties. The commissioners argue that the Wyoming Constitution states there should be 1 representative and 1 senator for each county, so they believe the current law is unconstitutional.
Senate President Ogden Driscoll believes the Weston effort is politically motivated and doubts that it's supported by the majority of people in Weston County, whom he believes will now become less trusting in government as a result of the effort. A domestic disturbance culminated in an officer-involved shooting Monday in Douglas, just 2 days after a similar incident unfolded in Sundance. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that it's not common to see 2 officer-involved shootings in such a short time period in Wyoming.
I certainly haven't seen it this year or last. So within just over 2 days, that you had one in Sundance that sounds like it happened after a domestic incident, and then one in Douglas that's reported to have happened after a domestic incident. Very strange how similar they sound just from the initial reports.
An armed home invasion in Sundance turned into a deputy-involved shooting Saturday morning in which the suspect, 48-year-old Joseph Niemeyer, was killed. In the Douglas incident, law enforcement has not identified the person who was shot or whether that person was still alive. An agonizing wait for closure for a Colorado man's loved ones finally ended when a Wyoming search and rescue team recovered his body from an extremely remote location that Colorado teams couldn't reach. Colorado search and rescue teams made 2 failed attempts to reach the body of 31-year-old Vincent Payne, who fell to his death August 28th in the Indian Peaks Wilderness west of Boulder. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that Teton County Search and Rescue and 2 Jenny Lake climbing rangers from Grand Teton National Park were called in to help.
His remains ended up in a place that was just impossible to get to. I guess Colorado crews tried 2 or 3 times over the course of about a month to get to it, and they just couldn't. Teton County Search and Rescue has a very specific type of chopper that is made for flying at high altitudes in tight quarters like that up against steep rocks, as well as a static line that allowed them to get the job done.
Though it was a sad mission, Teton County Search and Rescue Chief Advisor Cody Lockhart told Cowboy State Daily that it also brought the team a sense of satisfaction that they were able to bring closure to the family. And the National Weather Service has announced a change to its winter weather vernacular. Watches and warnings for wind chill will be replaced by extreme cold to give a broader preview of what can be expected outside during winter. That doesn't mean wind chills won't be posted when they happen. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that extremely low wind chills are still a potent threat, but there's more to extreme cold than the wind.
A wind chill warning might last for as long as the winds are blowing, but it can still be dangerously cold. So So extreme cold watches and warnings are for enduring low temperatures that factor in the wind chill. So it's not like wind chills cease to exist. If they're dangerously cold, they'll still be in the forecast, but nobody's going to be advised about or warned about wind chills, at least officially. They're going to be warned about extreme cold, which can exist with or without the wind.
Regardless of what wording is in front of the watches and warnings, Cowboy State Daily's meteorologist Don Day said Wyomingites should expect to see extreme cold frequently in their forecasts this winter. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to drop in on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake Nichols, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.